Hello? Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. Zenith Irfan, One Girl, Two Wheels. Today, I am going to take you on a journey, not through planes, not through trains, but on my own personal Honda CG125, riding through the Karakoram and the Hindu Kush range and experiencing the beauty of Pakistan in a 360-degree view. But before we embark on this journey, I want to talk more about who Zenith really is. What is her story, and why is she today speaking at I Am Karachi platform? I am not an ordinary girl who rides through the mountains of Pakistan. I am every woman who wants to actually shape her dreams with her own bare hands. I am the living legacy of my late father, who, like you all, also dreamt. My father passed away when he was 34 years old, and he left with my mother a 10-month-old baby. And my mother at that time was pregnant with my brother. She was 28. And throughout my entire life, and even today, questions such as what defines fatherhood, what it is really like to have a father in your house, what it is like to, कभी कभी छुप छुप के उनकी wallet से थोड़े से पैसे चुरा लेना, dance सुनना, what is the basic meaning of a father? All these questions created a blank space in my life. I had this void in my life that what really is a father? I would often ask my mother, tell me more about my father. Who was he? Did he have passions? Did he have dreams? Because I was only 10 months old and I had no memories with him. And at this picture, obviously, I have no memories. I was really young. My mother, then, once we were going through some family photographs, she told me about this specific photograph of him in Kashmir, dressed in an army uniform in the mountains of Kashmir. It was a very beautiful photograph of him. And she told me that, you always ask me who your father really was. Let me tell you something about him. He wanted to go on a world motorcycle journey. He wanted to go all around the world on a motorcycle, not a plane, but a motorcycle. And when she told me this, I immediately became depressed. I was like, isn't it unfair that he, being only 34, couldn't even live and shape his dreams? The very next morning, and I was 12 at that time, I decided that I have to create my own story and fill in that void. I decided to take that step and live his legacy and start writing on his name. My father's last words, he used to actually write letters to my mother when my mother would be in Sharjah, because I originally was brought up there. They would exchange love letters, and this was his last letter and last words to my mother. And he said that I came home, and when I came back home, there was no honey bunny. He would call my mother honey bunny with a smiling face. There was no Alize. He would love to, actually called me by this name, Alize, when I was really young. And immediately, I was, just struck with depression when I found out that you both were not there. And then again, he just left all of us. Happiness. I've noticed that when I'm in university, when I'm in my usual surroundings, I see people going to their jobs, studying at late night hours, and then just trying to find what happiness really is, not knowing that it was inside their own selves. I love this picture, especially because when this character actually asks, how did you find that happiness? I have been searching it for all my life. And he just plainly says, I created it. This picture was the essence to my writing. Through my motorcycle journey, I created that happiness in my life. I filled in that void. Humble beginnings. I was not a very athletic or a sporty person knowing A to Z about motorcycles. I was a very normal girl who found out about her father's dream. Was totally clueless on how I should start riding. And then I opened up my laptop, I searched through some YouTube videos, and saw that how they would pack for a motorcycle journey, the perfect gear to buy, the perfect helmet to buy. And this very helmet, as you can see, the white one, was too loose for me because I really had no clue on how to start. But I did not stop. I kept on researching, and now, 2 years later, I have enough knowledge about riding. And this is my first keychain. I named her Rosie, and she is my partner in crime and my traveling buddy. And when I looked at her riding through the mountains, I don't know why, but she motivated me to ride even more, even though she is a lifeless creature. But for me, she held actually a meaning. The decision. When I first took the step to ride to Kashmir, it took me 11 hours to ride from Lahore to Islamabad. I did not know how to ride at all. I had the basic trainings, but I did not know how to ride specifically in the mountains. I did not know कि एक gear कम करना होता है, इसको ऐसे करते हैं, bike को ऐसे balance करते हैं. For me, everything was new. And this picture truly actually shows my experience. And it was when I was riding to Islamabad, and I was totally in defeat, and I wanted to give up right then. But I thought to myself that since I've come so long, why give up now? And when I went to Kashmir, the first pit stop I made was in a petrol station. And a very humble Kashmiri man came to me and offered me tea. And as surprising as it is, he was not offended by my riding. He was taken by surprise. And he was motivating me and actually suggesting me the towns I should visit in Kashmir. Kashmir Jannat Nazir. This is properly described in this picture. And this picture is where I first made my first journey actually started from this picture. And I love this picture because it actually truly resonates the beauty of Kashmir and truly defines why people say Kashmir Jannat Nazir. This picture has a very important story because when I was riding through Sharda, it's in a small town in Kashmir, I came across this tent. It was a tribal tent. And I went there, taken by surprise. I just went there. I was curious about the women over there, and I loved their jewelry. And I just went and started communicating with them, and they told me that they had walked from Jhelum to Kashmir. And they said it so plainly, and I was like, oh my God, their strength is even greater than mine. And when I asked them what their next plans were, they said, oh, we are going to the Osai Plains. It's one of the second highest plateau in Pakistan. And I was like, okay, they're truly strong women. And such things are usually not actually told by the media or by other people. They're really underrated tribes. But for me, this tribe is a true definition of strength. Gilgit-Baltistan. I then decided that Kashmir is not only where I'm going to ride, I'm going to ride even more. And before I embark on an international journey, I am going to ride in my own Pakistan first. So I rode in the Osai Plains. As you can already see, this is my CG125, a very small bike. I then went around and struggled my way through Rama Valley, and I was actually laughing in this picture because I was like, oh my God, I have to just go and crawl through the rocks. I then made my way to Misgar Valley, and this valley is actually a small detour when you go to Khunjra Pass. And one of the most important things about this valley is that there are a lot of stories about mythical creatures, living there and attacking people, told by the tales of the people who actually lived there. So the entire night I spent sipping gawa and actually listening to all the mythical creatures that have actually resided in this valley. And plus, I never knew that I was riding in such high altitude, I never looked down. And when I did, I was like, okay, Zenith, keep your eyes straight, don't look down. This picture is very important for me even today because as a Pakistani, Pakistan has given me cultural shock. I never knew about the diverse people Pakistan actually has. And when picture was actually taken in Chelaz, you can see my brother in the background. And my brother actually told me to cover up because there have been recent incidents of tourists being attacked. And I was like, okay, I was a bit scared, but I was like, I have to take this risk. And later on, I met a Chelasi who told me that not all Chelasi people are like this. It's because of the low literacy rate that they do not know how to interact with tourists. And he was so humble and he was so sweet that I learned not to generalize certain group of peoples based on a particular experience or an event. This is some of my moments from my Gilgit-Baltistan tour. Me with the goat, I had to struggle to take a picture with this one. And I just jumped on this tractor. I was like, I have to take a picture. And they were like, okay. And all these really Balti people. There's some of my really wonderful moments from my tour. And this is the victory, my power pose, and riding 13,000 feet to Babusar top. So this is where I finally realized that I am living my father's dream. The second victory power pose I did, thank you. This was in Khunjra Pass, and the guide you see over here, he actually told me that, do you know you are the first Pakistani woman I've met? There are so many European and Australian women who ride through this border, but you are the first Pakistani woman to have actually made it here. And that was, that was totally shocking for me because my aim was to actually live my father's dream, not to actually gain a title. So this is a big achievement for me. This picture actually is very interesting because when I was riding back from Khunjra Pass to back home, you come across Pasu Cones. I'm sure those of you who have traveled north know about this. And I saw this book. I actually stopped for a picture. And when I opened it, it was Injil, Khuda ki kitab thi ek. And I was like, what is it doing here? I just read one verse and I kept it back. Not taking it home, I just kept it back. And when I went back home, I researched more about somebody actually told me that, do you know that these books are called riding books? So a person who's actually traveling through a certain area would keep a books for other travelers to read from. So that was a new discovery for me, and this is one of the riding books in Pasukons. I went there this year. It wasn't there, but this is actually an example of riding book in Pakistan. This picture is also another example of strength. I was riding back home from Niran, and I met this woman, and she was around above 80. She was carrying this huge log of wood, it was a huge load, and I told her that, can I hold it? And I couldn't. You can see Miss Slami smiling, but I was actually struggling my way through the whole huge log of woods, and she was taking it for her children to lit the fire up, and her strength gave me the motivation to ride even more in Pakistan, the land of Pakhtuns. My recent tour has been to KPK, and I went there because I wanted to explore more about their culture, their mindsets, and the beauty of KPK. So I did my first oil change in Islamabad with a maple leaf, as you can see, and I just stopped by this man's tent, and he actually goes there every winter and harvests apricots. His strength was then again another motivating factor for me to ride. Another picture of me struggling and stopping a guy who was taking this feed for his goat. And I was like, okay, I needed to catch a picture. And trust me, even though I have actually traveled more than 7,000 kilometers on my motorcycle, you cannot find such examples of strength in the local people of North. This picture is when I was riding through Pandar Valley, And you can see all these boys over there. It's just not a picture with the boys. They were actually cheering me and telling me that go, go in Balti language. They were just cheering me up, and they were shocked to know that a woman was there. Yet again, they were very, very happy. They were not at all hostile, and I loved their reaction towards my motorcycle. I loved their company. They were very friendly people. One of the most interesting stories about the picture you see above is in Hotel Dimson. I lived over here in Bahrain, and I noticed that when I was staying there, there were some cameras pointing towards a river that was flowing underneath the hotel. I asked the owner, why do you have cameras installed that are exactly pointing towards the river? And he told me, do you know there was a murder that took place in this hotel? And I was like, really? And yeah, and they said, you guys are living in room number 2. The murder happened in room number 3. And all night, I was just up awake saying, ki yahan se kuch chore le guzre ke jayegi, oh my God. And even though I have taken the risk, I'm still scared of such certain things. And then we took, he really wanted to take a picture. I took a picture with him. And traveling is not all about luxury. You have to do your kapra dhone wale sab karna padta hai during your motorcycle journey, because you have to carry a minimum baggage. So you cannot take lots of clothes. So wo bhi just relaxing, and I just washed my clothes and relaxing in Kalam. And this is when I was actually inquiring about the weather updates in Kumrat Valley, because I plan to ride there. And this man also asked me from where I was, and he said, are you Indian? I said, no, I'm not Indian. I'm Pakistani. He was like, okay, really? And he really did not know what to say. This was when I climbed 6,000 feet without any gear. And yet again, I never knew I could do this. I never knew I had the physical capacity to do this. But I finally made it towards a lake that was actually behind these rocks. Okay, so that was all about my journey and what I have been, where I have been actually traveling in the past few years. But the most common question I ask is about the psychological impact I have from my tours and about death. This is when I first encountered death. And when I was riding to my university, I slipped from my bike in the rain, and I had a head concussion with the footpath. My bike's helmet was not strapped on. I do not remember what happened in the entire day, but I do remember that I had a slight encounter with death. And when I met death, it was a very, very peaceful experience. Like all of you, you might think, isn't that different from what we all have been seeing? But for me, it was like I just embraced it. I was not at all scared. My second experience was when I went to KP, and I was riding to Kharkari Jheel, and I was riding through this wooden bridge, and I just slipped. My motorcycle was on top of the bridge, and I slipped in the flowing river. And you know how they say in North that when a person actually drowns in the river, you cannot get the dead body back. For me, that actually happened. I slipped in that river, and a person who was my guide at that time saved me. He jumped into the river, and he saved me at that particular moment. And when I was flowing in that river, I did not stop. I did not fight the water back. I actually went with the flow, and I embraced death. Because, you know, I read this quote by Franklin, the American president, and he said that the most dangerous thing you can do is fear itself. That's what is the most dangerous thing you can do. Just fear itself. And that quote for me stayed during my entire motorcycle journey. I want to also now talk more about this experience that I had with the second step. When I watched the movie where Philippe, in the August 1974, he actually made a line, and he attached it from one building of the World Trade Center at that time and walked towards the other building from that particular string of line. And when he was interviewed, the most frequently asked question that he was actually told to answer was that what was the psychological impact you had from crossing that line and taking that risk. And he said that it is not death, it is the second step. The interviewers were like, the second step? What is that? And Philippe said that the first step is when I can actually hold the barriers, the poles, and I can support myself. But the second step is when I have no support, when I am the center of the gravity, when I am myself, my mind, my body, and soul are aligned. The second step is underrated. People don't talk about it. People always talk about the first step. But the second step is what actually you all have to do. Just a tiny step, but take that second step. And this actually, when I read about this question that he was asked and how he answered it, it stayed for me for such a long time, and I have since then taken so many second steps. I did not stop. My journey has not ended, it has just begun. And now, 2 years later, I not only write for my father, but I also write for Pakistan. Because when I opened up my Facebook page, there was this particular comment that I got from an American person, and he told me that I hated Pakistan. I did not like Pakistani people. I just don't like Pakistan. And he told me, but when I went through your page, and when I saw your motorcycle journey, you have convinced me enough that to come to Pakistan and ride. And when I read that comment, I knew that for now, I have to ride for Pakistan. In the end, I would like to say that when I read this quote from Anais Nin, and she's a writer, and she said that the most beautiful pieces of art, be it Vincent van Gogh or Frida Kahlo, were made in depression, despair, and misery. The duality of misery and individuality is what makes great art. It's not important that it can be only a painting, it can be a story, it can be that second step. So for all of you who are thinking to take that second step, you need to climb that goddamn mountain. Thank you.